Good morning, children. Welcome to the new session. Today, we will be starting the second chapter, friction. In our first lesson, force and pressure, we had a discussion on different types of forces. Then we studied the definition of frictional force and we understood that it is a contact force. In this lesson, we will be studying about friction in detail. Okay? First, let's see some examples from our daily life situations. Look at this pen. It's a normal ballpoint pen which we all use. The place where we hold the pen, there will be some grooves on the pen. Some rough surface so that we can hold it properly. We get more grip. You check all the ballpoint pens. Here there will be some rings or grooves on the pen. Now see the tires. There are some ups and downs on these tires which are called treadings. Okay, you check here, bicycle tire or car tire. They all will have these treadings or grooves on that. Sometimes if the same tire is used for many years, chances are there this car may skid, because then the tires, all these grooves will disappear and the tires will become flat. Okay, then you check the sole of your shoes. There will be some grooves on it. Okay, if it is flat and plain, you may slip. Alright, now see this board, caution wet floor. In big hospitals, shopping malls and all, after cleaning they keep the board like this. It is a caution for the people coming to the building. At home also we do the same thing. After mopping the floor, we tell the people at home to take care. Why is it so? Because chances are there on the wet floor we may slip. Now, when you rub your hands together, heat energy will be produced. Okay, this shows the heat energy. Alright, now this figure shows the use of eraser. We use erasers. Okay, then what happens? Every year in the beginning of the academic year you get new scale, pencil, erasers and all. After using it for 3-4 months, the eraser becomes small. Why is it so? Okay, then here this is the photograph of a forest fire. You know, forest fire, it's a natural process. Nobody is going to forest and light the fire. Okay, you must be watching in television and must be reading in newspaper and all about Australia and all. It's a common thing, forest fire, and sometimes it burns for months and months. Okay, and here these two people in a tribe, they are trying to produce fire. They have taken some twigs and they have taken a wooden stick and they are rotating it, the wooden stick over the twigs, so that the fire is produced. In social studies, you must have studied in Stone Age how the people created fire for the first time. Okay, now matchstick and matchbox, you all know how to light a matchstick by striking it against the matchbox. Okay, here you can see a person lying down on the floor after stamping on a banana peel. Okay, at home also sometimes it happens. That is why we are not advised to throw banana peel here and there. Okay, now this man is trying his level best to push the car. Okay, he has to put lot of effort. He has to apply a lot of force to make the car move. And here you can see when two moving vehicles collide each other. Okay, heat energy will be produced. Or a very common experience, when you apply the brakes of a car, all of a sudden what happens? You can hear a sound, you can feel a burnt smell. Okay, and the tire will be slightly burnt also. Okay, now here a child taking bath, applied soap, and the washroom, standing on a anti-slip mat. Okay, these were some examples. We can give any number of examples. You must be playing caroms. While playing caroms, when you find the coins are not moving very smoothly on the board, what do? We apply little powder on that. We get carom board powder. Then after that, the coins start moving very fast and smoothly. Okay. Similarly, girls, you must have experienced another thing. When you want to remove a bangle from your hand, if it is very tight, okay, what you can do is you can either apply little soap solution or you can apply a little oil so that the bangle can be removed very fast. Okay, then you must have watched on TV this weightlifting people. Before lifting the weight, they apply little coarse sand on their hand, okay, to make their hands rough. Alright, like that we can have many examples from our daily life situations. In all these examples, friction has a role. Okay, now we are going to study what is friction's role in all these activities. See, we have studied friction is a force which opposes the relative motion. The main job of friction is to oppose the motion of the object. Here the pushing force is applied towards left, so friction is acting towards right. Okay, it always opposes motion. Here we are trying to push this block towards our right. We wanted the block to move in the forward direction. So immediately the friction comes into action and that will be acting in the opposite direction towards left. Okay, when we are trying to move in the forward direction, friction will be acting in the backward direction. This ball is rolling on the ground. Friction will be acting in the opposite direction. See, even if we don't stop the ball, after some time, after rolling on the surface, it will come to rest. Why is it so? Who is stopping it? The frictional force between the ball and the surface stops it. Okay. Now, here 4 pictures are given. In all the 4 pictures, you can see in whichever direction the object is trying to move, the frictional force will be acting in the opposite direction. See this duck, it is trying to swim in water in the forward direction and the friction is offered in the backward direction. Okay, so now we are going to define force. The same definition what we have studied in the first lesson. It is a force which opposes the relative motion between two surfaces in contact. Okay, there will be two surfaces, they will be in contact. When one tries to move on the other, the frictional force comes into action. Okay, now the force of friction always opposes any applied force which tend to move one surface relative to the other when they are in contact and acts in a direction opposite to the applied force. So the frictional force always acts in a direction opposite to the applied force and it acts on both the surfaces. Okay, a book is kept on the table. You are trying to push the book. Okay, so the bottom part of the book and the top part of the table, both of them are in contact. So frictional force will be applied on both the book and on the surface of the table also. Okay, now what is the reason for friction? Children, it is a very simple concept to understand. You know, we have many different surfaces. Okay, our tabletop, which we are using, the common wooden table. Just by touch you can make out there will be some ups and downs on the table. Okay, now if it is covered with plywood, you find it very smooth. But even that surface, if you touch and feel, you can find some ups and downs. Suppose your dining table is having a glass top. Okay, then you feel that it is glass. Of course, that surface will be much smoother than the wooden or plywood surface. but still, if you observe with a microscope, you can find so many ups and downs on that. So practically, all the surfaces will have some irregularities or ups and downs on the surface. Okay, so when two surfaces come in contact, these irregularities lock into each other. Okay, that is, irregularities means it is ups and downs, as you see in this figure. See, there are two surfaces, one is shown in blue color, the other one is shown in brown color. The blue color surfaces have some irregularities which are shown as white, and this brown color. Okay, so when these two surfaces come in contact, the ups and downs or the irregularities get interlocked. They lock into each other. Okay, so when we attempt to move any surface, we have to apply force to overcome this interlocking. So the reason for friction is due to the interlocking of the irregularities on both the surfaces. Very simple. Here there is another example. It's both the pictures are almost the same. Object B is trying to move on a surface A. Okay, so this irregularities on the both the surfaces get interlocked. Okay, so when we try to move the subject, we have to overcome this interlocking of irregularities. Okay, so friction is caused due to the irregularities on the two surfaces in contact, and irregularities on the two surfaces lock into one another, and when we try to move, we have to apply force to overcome the interlocking of irregularities. Very simple concept. Now, what are the factors on which force of friction depends? Of course, we have already seen that if the surface is smooth, irregularities will be less. If the surface is rough, more irregularities will be there. If more irregularities are there, more interlocking. If more interlocking is there, we have to apply more force. So what is it? Friction depends on the nature of the surfaces. Okay, friction depends on the nature of the surfaces. Children, now it is rainy season. Okay, when we move outside from our house to the backyard or the front yard, chances are there we may slip. So you ask your parents what they must have done. They must have spread some gravel, or sometimes we put bleaching powder to make the surface rough. Okay, so that we get more grip on the ground. It should not be slippery. Okay, so it depends on the frictional force depends on the nature of the surface. Nature means whether the surface is smooth or rough. Okay, if the surface is smooth, which means the number of irregularities will be less, so interlocking will be less, so the frictional force applied will be less. If the surface is smooth, the number of irregularities are more, so the interlocking will be more stronger, and hence the frictional force will be more. Okay, so the first factor on which the force of friction depends is nature of the surface, that is on the smoothness or roughness of the surface. Smooth surfaces have minute irregularities between the two surfaces. Rough surfaces have larger irregularities between the two surfaces. So force of friction is more if the surfaces are rough. So children, one small work for you at home. You check the tiles in the front hall and check the tiles in the bathroom. You will find that these two tiles are different. Bathroom tiles are different from the front hall tiles. Front hall tiles will be very smooth. Bathroom tiles, purposely the companies make it very rough, so that because in the bathroom always water, soap solution, everything is there, or chances are there we may slip. So to avoid that, the surface is made rough, so that the number of irregularities are more, frictional force is more, we get more grip on the floor and we do not fall down. Okay, then those who have traveled by flight, you know the conveyor belts in the airport where the luggage come. that belt has so many grooves on it, so that the suitcases and all do not fall down from that. Okay, then like that we have many examples. Sometimes in the kitchen, when we try to open the lid of a new bottle, or when we try to open the lid of an oil bottle, the hands may slip. Immediately, what do? We take a rough handkerchief and hold it in our hand, and with that we try to open it. What is that? We are using a rough surface. For what? To get more grip, to make the frictional force more. Okay, your shoes, if you are wearing the same shoes for a long time, when you walk on the floor we may slip. What is the reason? All the grooves, all the threadings on the shoes disappear after we use for a long time. Okay, so frictional force depends on the nature of the surface. If the surface is smooth, frictional force will be less. If the surface is rough, frictional force will be more. What is the reason? On a smooth surface, the number of irregularities will be less, whereas on a rough surface, a large number of irregularities will be there. So the interlocking will be more. Okay. Now, there are many examples I have shown here. See, this surface appears to be very smooth. Okay, it's a plywood block. So, he is applying a small push because he has to overcome only a law of friction. But look at this, the same boy, the same block he is pushing, but the surface on which it is kept is different. Now it is a rough surface, more frictional force, so he has to apply more force to push it. Okay, now look at this, a cylindrical block is rolled over a slanted or an inclined plane, and look at this surface, this much it has traveled. Here the same block, the surface is rough, so it has traveled only a small distance. Since this surface is smooth, friction is less, so it could travel a long distance before it comes to stop. Here the surface is rough, frictional force is more, so it could travel only a small distance. By the time the friction stopped it. Motion. Okay, now this is an activity from your textbook, almost a similar activity. Two boys, they have made an inclined plane and they have a wooden surface here, and they are trying to roll a pencil cell, normal cell which we use in our remote control and all. So they have rolled it, and this surface is smooth, so it has traveled a long distance. Then what they did, they have spread a cotton cloth over the surface, and they could see that the cell could travel only a small distance because now the friction is more. Children, another example what you find is, if you are wearing a synthetic cloth which is very smooth and traveling in a bus, and you are sitting on the seat. Okay, so if you are wearing a very smooth cloth, when the driver takes a turn, the bus turns, chances are there you may slip from the seat of the bus. Okay, so there are many examples like that from our life situation. Okay, now you are rolling a ball inside your house in the front hall where the tiles are spread. Okay, the ball will be rolling for a long time because the tiles, the floor is smooth. The same ball, you take it out. Okay, the interlock in front of your house, in the front yard, you roll it there, it will stop immediately because that is rough. Okay, so there are many examples like that. Now the second factor on which the frictional force depends is how hard the surfaces are pressed, okay, against each other. If you are pressing both the surfaces very hard, the interlocking of irregularities become very strong. So then also we have to apply more force to overcome that interlocking. Here, one example is given, the same surface. Now the surface is the same. Nature of the surface is the same. Same smoothness, Okay, now see, here a wooden block is kept. Here a small wooden block is kept. What is the difference? The weight of this wooden block is much larger than the weight of this wooden block. When the weight is increased, you know, these two surfaces will be pressed more harder. Okay, here the weight is less, so the pressing between the two surfaces will be less. So how hard the surfaces are pressed against each other, that matters a lot. When you are trying to push a mat, you have to apply a very small force. Suppose your younger brother or sister is sitting on the mat and now you are trying to push the mat, you will have to apply a lot of force. Why? Because now your sister is sitting on that, her weight is applied on the floor, so the irregularities between the mat and the floor get more interlocked. Strong interlocking between the two surfaces. So children, the two factors are, one is the nature of the surface, second is how hard the surfaces are pressed, or you can say the weight of the object which is kept on the surface. That matters a lot. If it's a light object, the pressing will be not very hard. We will have to apply a very small force to overcome the interlocking. But if the object is heavy, the pressing between the two surfaces becomes very hard, very strong interlocking between the irregularities, and we have to apply a large force. Okay children, so we have studied only very few things. What is frictional force and many examples. Okay, then what is the reason for friction? Then what are the two factors on which frictional force depends? Children, please go through the video and go through your textbook also. And when you meet in the live class, give me more examples from your experience for frictional force. Okay, let me wind up. Thank you.